Number 1. At some point in most teenage girls' life, they will be hurt by a boy. Some get hurt more than others, as in the case with me. My name is Rachel Wilson. I'm 19 years old, and I've already had 3 bad breakups. First, there's Ryan, my first love. We were like 2 peas in a pod, until I found out he planned to dump me and shatter my heart into a million shards. Boys are stupid. I got rid of him before he could dump me. He always wrote this ring on his index finger. I decided to keep it as a souvenir for good luck. Next was Jack. He came along, attempting to console me after I lost Ryan. He tried to be my shoulder to cry on. Foolishly, I believed him when he said he would never hurt me. I began to trust him, and I told him all of my secrets. The next day, I found him talking to other girls. Bye bye, Jack. Not once did I miss that sniveling little rat. Even after he was talking to other girls when I got rid of him, he still cried like a baby. Strangely enough, after he was gone, his other girlfriends seemed to pop up everywhere. Jealous much? Jack had a small tattoo of a 4-leaf clover. I always liked it. Another good luck souvenir, I guess. The most recent boyfriend was Lee. The best and worst thing to ever happen to me. We were a perfect couple, inseparable. We knew each other's secrets, but when it went downhill, it happened so rapidly. The breakdown started when he began calling me crazy. It was humiliating. First, he only said it to me, then he started telling other people. My perfect boyfriend shouting from the rooftops that I was crazy. The thing that pushed me entirely over the edge is when I found him talking to the same girls as Jack. Can you believe it? Why do they keep interfering with my boyfriends? Anyway, Lee was the most difficult to get rid of. He was so tall and handsome. Eventually, he was gone like the rest. That's what he gets for calling me names. I used to love his eyes. I spent so much time drawing them over and over again. I know people say that you should let go of things like that, although I decided to keep them, add them to the collection. This brings me to now. I have a new love. He makes me happy, or at least he did for a while, but now things have changed. The dank air radiated around his body. The repulsive odor inched its way into his nostrils, whilst the cold stone he lay upon sent shivers up his spine. Where was he? Croaked whimpers escaped from his crumbled body and echoed against the concrete. Please, Rachel. From the balcony above, I watched as he squirmed, just like the worm he was. How dare he cry for help after the ordeal he put me through? He deserves this. He hurt me. As the metallic stench of blood plagued my nostrils, I reminisced as to how we got here. After Lee, I spent a lot of time on my own, thinking about my previous mistakes, wondering if I could ever be happy. I felt trapped in a web of heartbreak in which I could not be freed. Wallowing in self-pity, I glared at my phone. As if by magic, a message popped up. I knew it wasn't going to be from any of my exes. It was someone new. Sean Brown. Did I know that name? Not yet, anyways. It always starts like this, an innocent message from a new boy. I begin to open up to him and start to gain feelings for him. Then he hurts me. A vicious cycle in which I cannot break free from. The same thing happened with Sean. We were happy until one night when he was at my house. I think it was maybe the souvenirs that I kept from my exes that freaked him out. Boys are so immature, becoming jealous over some memories. Pathetic. The boy who once looked at me with love turned to me with fear in his eyes. A horrified look across his face, he spit his words at me, calling me a psychopath, disgusting, deluded. All this over some little keepsakes. I wasn't quite ready to get rid of Sean yet. There was so much hope left for us. We could make it work. Now he is in my basement. This way I can talk to him, make him understand how much I care for him. It's not my fault that he hit his head on the way down. Accidents happen. He is awoken now. His clear blue pools for eyes were filled with tears, ready to overflow. As he pleaded with me, I could not see past those words he spat at me. He didn't deserve my forgiveness yet. I couldn't just leave him. Maybe we could stay together down here forever. Upstairs there is a knocking at the door. Loud knocking, someone shouting, "Help, I'm down here, someone help." Why is everything moving so quickly? People are rushing down the stairs. The girls, the ones the men I love seem to devote their time to. What were they doing here? I must protect myself from them. An urging rush of anger flushes through my body as I reach for the object nearest to me, a hammer. Why is there blood all over it? Streaming down my hands, where is it all coming from? Someone is screaming, wailing, and pleading. Bodies engulf me, pinning me to the cold stone floor. I slowly drift out of consciousness. The last thing I catch a glimpse of is my gorgeous Sean. Oh, how I love him. They said I'm a monster or a psychopath. They say they watched me for months, that I cannot grasp reality. They just haven't met my ex-boyfriends. If they had, they would know how much I've been through. I pleaded with them to let me get my souvenirs from home. I need them. They said they already took them, and they can't give them back. Evidence for something. I hear the men in the white lab coats talking, saying my house was infested with bugs that those investigating could not see in front of them due to how bad it was. My house is lovely and it reminds me of my past. In court, they mentioned my exes. I never really listened. They only spoke lies, anyways. Cruel words were used. Absurd assumptions. I got to see photos of my souvenirs, which was nice. Amputated body parts have been taken from each of the victims. In total, a finger, a set of eyes, and a patch of skin with a tattoo were all displayed in the suspect's home. Of course, these authority figures did not understand the emotional connection behind it. They didn't understand love. According to the doctors, I'm going to stay here for a while, and my internet use is limited. I don't really mind, though. I have been trying to get them to tell me when I can see Sean. He must be so worried about me by now. Nobody understands me, and let's be honest, we all have skeletons in our closet. Number 2. Hey Reddit, guess what? I proposed to my girlfriend today. I was really nervous because we haven't been dating for too long. But true love just can't wait, you know. It was such a crazy day, and I want you to hear all about it. I was so nervous this morning, but I knew it had to be today. Today just felt right. I had made up my mind almost a week ago to do it, and I finally worked up the nerve. I hadn't told anyone, not even my mom or Dr. Jefferson. I think they'd think I was crazy for falling for a girl so quickly, but they didn't understand what Abby and I had. No one did. I knew we were the perfect couple, so why wait? Anyways, back to this morning. Things didn't start out as I had expected. Abby and I share summer class at our university. There were only about 15 people in the lecture hall, so I could easily tell that she wasn't there when class started. I had tried paying attention to the professor to distract myself from my nerves, but quickly had taken to doodling and playing on my phone, unable to keep from worrying about her. She was never late to class. What if something had happened to Abby? I was slumped in my seat, debating whether or not to head to her dorm when I heard the door open. I quickly glanced up and let out an audible sigh of relief. Abby was here, just as beautiful as the first day I had laid eyes on her. Her hair, half drawn into a bun, was a golden brown, like waves of melting chocolate falling down and piling on her shoulders. She wore a light yellow sundress embroidered with small blue flowers. A freshly sharpened pencil was tucked behind her ear. She was visibly distressed over being late to class. Abby is such a teacher's pet. She was in too much of a hurry to see the open seat I had saved for her, and instead rushed down into the front row. Who could blame her? Abby had clearly had a lot on her mind this morning. Besides, I was too distracted by how good she looked today. Her long tan legs were crossed and one perfectly manicured hand rested on the top. The other waved in front of her as she spoke, gracefully emphasizing whatever point she was making to the professor, probably some explanation for her tardiness. Her voice was music, a bluebird song on a spring morning. She was perfect, and she was mine. I was reminded then, for the 100th time, that I was in love. I'd never been much of a ladies' man, and the couple girlfriends I had previously hadn't stuck around long, but they were nothing compared to Abby, less than nothing. What I felt for Abby was something so much deeper and more intense. I spent the rest of the class gazing at my Abby, wishing this class would last longer and I could just watch her forever and ever. It was as if she was a secret, beautiful portrait I owned that I could look at whenever I wanted and no one could stop me. It was so romantic. I knew today had to be the day, our special day. I shook my head to clear my thoughts. Everyone around me was shoveling their books back into their bags and backpacks. Class was over. I peered through the crowd of migrating students to find my Abby. She was chatting with the professor, laughing at something he had said. Like I said, always a teacher's pet, but somehow that just made her all more endearing to me. I messed around at my seat, waiting for Abby to leave. I dug the engagement ring out from under some textbooks, empty pill bottles, and crumpled papers in my backpack. I was going to propose in the class where we had met for the first time. My Abby would love it. I knew she would. Another musical peal of laughter rang out from the front of the auditorium. Why didn't the professor just shut up and let her go? Pretentious bastard had some stupid degree in a subject that nobody gives two craps about, and now he thought he could just take the girl of my dreams away from me. Honestly, I should have just beat his smug face right there. But Abby was finally leaving. I snapped back into focus. This was it. She was coming up the aisle, finding something in her bag. I began to move towards her from my seat, swinging my backpack on and smiling, slipping the ring out of my pocket into my hand. But she just kept walking and didn't even glance in my direction. I literally froze in shock and confusion. What was going on? Why was she ignoring me like this? This wasn't like her at all. Abby kept walking up the aisle towards the door, now intently focused on her phone. The shock passed and I realized she just hadn't noticed. She must have still been stressed about whatever had made her late this morning. She probably figured I had went ahead outside and was expecting me there. I grinned to myself. I would sneak up behind her as she left the room and surprise her. We would have a good laugh about the whole thing. I could find out what was distracting her so much. I increased my pace, trying to close the distance between her and I. I couldn't wait to see the look on her face when I swept her off her feet and made her mine forever. But then it was all ruined. Some girl had come into the classroom and yelled at Abby to hurry up so they could get to class. Abby laughed and the two disappeared out the door, not even thinking to look behind her, and swung shut behind them. I know what you're thinking, and I was thinking it too. How could she ruin a special moment for Abby like that? Someone was just gonna try and take my girlfriend away from me like that? She didn't understand that Abby didn't want her bothering her. Abby only wanted me. Abby only needed me. I wish I could have just wrapped my hand around that stupid friend's throat and choked some sense into her. But it was fine. It was fine. I wasn't going to let Abby and I's special day be ruined by a small setback like this. I had some errands I needed to run before my next class, but my car had broken down last week and I just hadn't gotten around to getting it fixed. I was going to take an Uber to the pharmacy, but decided to go hang outside Abby's classroom and wait for her there. It was only a 2-hour class, and I was anxious to see her. Who cared about picking up some dumb prescription or going to a useless class? The only thing that mattered was making Abby my wife. However, when the class ended, there was no sign of her. I anxiously scanned the faces of everyone leaving the classroom, but she simply wasn't there. I even saw her dumb friend from before, with her nose glued to her phone, probably messing around on Tinder, not that any guy with functional eyes would be interested. But Abby wasn't with her. What was going on? I peeked into the classroom to see if Abby was talking to some prick professor again, but nothing. Where the hell was she? I was getting worried. What if something had happened to her? She could be hurt, trapped somewhere, crying out for me. She needed me. I went over to the girls' bathroom and shoved it open. Abby's idiotic friend was leaning over the sink, smearing makeup on herself. I demanded she tell me where my girlfriend was. I didn't have time to mess around, you know. The girl didn't immediately answer me. Who knows what the hell her problem was. I didn't have time to deal with that brain-dead horror. I shook her a bit, trying to get some sense into her. Finally, she managed to say something about Abby skipping class to meet someone in her dorm room. About frickin' time. The chick was spraying mucus and snot out of her nose. She was blubbering so hard. Just looking at her was grossing me out. Some girls are just crazy, am I right? Thankfully, I didn't have time to stick around anyways. I had to go to get to Abby's room. I cut across campus quickly. I was getting nervous again. This was it. Man, who knew being in love could be so stressful? Abby must have skipped class to meet me at her room so we could finally get some alone time together. I had no idea she could be this rebellious. That's my Abby, always surprising me. I took the stairs to her floor, 2 at a time, as fast as I could. I was heading down the hallway towards her room, nervously fiddling with the ring in my hand when I saw her. My Abby. Just thinking about that special moment makes me smile, even now. Somehow she had gotten more beautiful in the time since I had seen her in class. But she was with someone, a guy who was giving her a hug, laying his filthy, disgusting hands on my love. I couldn't hear what they were saying from where I was, but she obviously was being bothered by some random creep harassing her. My Abby was too polite to tell this douche to screw off. Such an angel she was. The hug ended. Abby waved daintily at the guy with one perfectly manicured hand, heading back inside of her room and shutting the door, clearly too polite to show her disgust with the subhuman freak who had just bothered her. The creep walked down the hallway, still smiling to himself as he checked his phone. He glanced at me as he passed and then back to his phone. I followed him into the stairwell. He never felt my fist against the back of his head, like I was gonna let this guy harass the love of my life. When I was done, I wiped my hands on my jeans. I walked back to the hallway and down to Abby's room. The ring had a little bit of blood on it, but it really didn't look too bad. Abby would understand, like she always did. I knocked gently on the door, hiding the ring behind my back. After a brief delay, it swung wide open. She stood there, just as beautiful as the first day I saw her. "Yes?" she said. I'll never forget how her lovely voice sounded. Our eyes met, and I was helplessly entranced. Her eyes were lush, shining emeralds, gazing deep into mine. Her face was perfectly symmetrical, a flawless complexion, and a light tan the same shade of her legs. She was a goddess. I stepped in her room, leaning in for a kiss. She playfully slapped me away, backing coyly into the room. For such a petite thing, she could give quite a smack. I loved when she played hard to get with me. I laughed, shutting the door behind me and following her in. Slowly walking towards her, I showered her with compliments on how amazing she looked and how much she meant to me, revealing the ring from behind my back. She stumbled backwards into the corner of the room, so overcome she could only scream with joy. I dropped to one knee and asked the woman of my dreams if she would make me the happiest man in the world. Just as I hoped, Abby was too overcome to speak, tears streaming down her cheeks. She fell back against the wall, staring at me with her mouth closing and opening silently in pure joy. She was going to be my wife. I was happy, so happy. I jumped up, wrapping her in my arms, and hugged her with all my might. It was so magical feeling her soft, warm body tremble with happiness against mine. Abby was so thrilled she struck me again and again with her hands in uncontrollable passion. I wanted that hug to last forever. Slowly her movements ceased and her cries of excitement quieted as she was overcome with love for me. I squeezed even harder. "I'll never let you go," I remembered whispering. "I'll be with you forever." When we finally separated, I had to catch her before she fell. She had fainted. The passion of our moment together had been too much. My beautiful, sweet Abby, so adorable. I scooped her up in my arms and laid her on the bed, gently shutting her eyes with my fingers and placing the soft pillow beneath her head. After I finish this post, I'll go to get her car. Her keys are on the desk, so I'll just pull it around the back of the building and carry her to it gently. We'll run away together from all of this. I'll take her someplace where it can be just the two of us. We're gonna be so happy, just me and my Abby forever. I know I should not be writing this. I think I'm safe at the moment. I'm sitting in the bathtub and the phone has been taken care of. But I fear that others might commit the sins I have if I do not speak up. When my sister sent me the link to some obscure mobile game, I wasn't sure what to think. She did this all the time, sending me creepy things that would make me jump out of my skin. Horror, blood, predictable scares that still managed to be somewhat scary. I had seen it all. At first, I decided to ignore her. We both knew it would end. She would sneak into my room as I played and scare me. But she couldn't do that now, could she? She's gone. Gone. My sister's dead. The realization made my blood freeze in my veins, eyes widening as I looked at her message. As I stared on, a couple words appeared on the screen prompting me to read them. "Play it. Download Deary.exe." I thought it was somebody fooling around with me. I was sure of that. There were many that believed I had been the one to take her life. I was a mere murderer in their lives and they would do anything to make me suffer, and yet my fingers twitched as I pressed the download button. It looked like your average don't play me horror game with jump scares and maybe some weird images that would make it hard to sleep. It was the middle of the night and I had been up for days now. Every time I closed my eyes I saw her face. I shuddered, my lips curling downwards as the game finally loaded. It was simple, the art pixelated and the character barely resembling a human. Something in the back of my mind was telling me to quit playing, for someone had broken into my sister's phone, and it easily could have been a prank. But once I started playing, there was no escape. My eyes were glued to the tiny screen, hands shaking, as if I was an addict off my drug, trying to beat every single level. I kept failing at first, and the guilt that blossomed in my mind was nearly agonizing. I could hear my sister humming from inside the phone. It was almost as if she was talking to me. The air in the room was buzzing with her presence, and yet I knew better. My sister's gone. I let out a near crazed shriek as the character died again. The game was getting glitchier with each level that passed, making me wonder if it would end up as messy as some others I played. I was almost ready for my sister to pop up behind me screaming, but I think her absence was what terrified me the most. She'd always been there when I played games like that. Even if she was lurking in the shadows, she was there, reassuring me in a way. But now she was nowhere to be seen, and I was alone, and I knew that it was my fault. It was morning by the time I finished the fourth level, the sun shining brightly through the thin curtains. My room swam in the sun's sweet light, but I groaned slightly. It was too early for this. Or was it too late? I had not slept a wink. I was completely enthralled, obsessed even, trying to find out the rest of the story. I wanted to know who the Yandere hiding in the game could be. My sister would have laughed it off and told me to rest, but she wasn't there. I was scared but too enthusiastic to wrap my tired mind around how much I was shaking. Not even once did I dare to look away, my thumbs hitting the key in rhythm with my character jumping. I knew I must be getting close to the end. I could feel it in my bones. A cold wind pushed the window to my room open fully, chilling enough to wake me up completely. What was I even doing? I wanted so badly to finish the game and then delete it, but I kept dying at the same spot. I kept yelling in my head, glad that my throat was sore. That way I could not scream out loud. And then I won. Finally. After hours and hours of work, I finished Deary.exe. I was ready to text the bastard that had stolen my sister's phone, but I was finally lucky enough to tear my gaze away from my phone for a moment. In the corner of my room, on my desk, sat the only phone my sister ever had. She had texted me from her own number, meaning that it truly had been her. Huh. The breathless chuckle that escaped me was more incredulous than scared as I grabbed the small device, seeing it light up with the very same game. Do dot not dot delete, it said. This was the last thing my sister ever saw, the very last thing her eyes were capable of taking in. I should have remembered. I did, I guess, but it was hard for me to let those thoughts back into my mind. I had known all along, for it had been my stupid friend that had sent it to her, that doctor that liked her so much. I admit, I was jealous that she was playing a game someone had recommended, so. You hurt me. I heard her voice. She was in the room. She was there, lying on my bed peacefully, almost as if she was sleeping. But her skin was too pale, and blood had dried on her neck in a new, shiny necklace. You killed me.